Okay. Well, welcome everybody, and welcome John to another story of hope. I'm so excited to have Jon Goldman here. We met at the end of June 2024 at the 3P UK conference, and we had a great connection. And John had me on his podcast, and now I'm really excited to have John here sharing some stories of hope. And John is the CEO, founder, and director of Turning Point. He has been in the Wall Street Journal, owns a large company, is an author, and you also have your own podcast as well. And I know when we were connecting, you had, prior to coming into the three principles conversation, a large, I don't know, you were practicing positive psychology. And we don't even need to jump there, but if I could pass it over to you, I'd be curious, because I don't know if we talked about it, of how did you come into the three principles conversation, and what what insights or like click points did you see in your own life that got you curious, not only for, hey, there might be something here for you personally and maybe professionally, if you'd be open to sharing that story.
Sure. Um, so what got me interested in it is it was a culmination of a journey for me. Um, when I was in college, I had the world's largest student-run advertising and public relations agency. And I did a lot of stuff that was, most of the things I did was legal, and I was also a normal college guy. Um, and so after college, I was offered a job to work in advertising agency world. And instead, I packed up a backpack and sold most of my possessions, and I took off around the world with a one-way ticket around the world. And in doing so, I had a rule, I had a tent and a rule that unless I got invited in somewhere, I would sleep in my tent. And so I was a semi-professional ultimate frisbee player as well. So I traveled around Europe, and I ended up in a lot of really interesting places with such a role. And I was traveling for a number of years, actually, out of my backpack. And ultimately, I ended up in a Buddhist monastery, and I shaved my head and changed my name to Tempa Chopil, which is the natural unflowering of the Dharma, but you can call me Tempa. And my mother thought I was crazy. I read a book by Tahil Gibran, who is a Sufi prophet, and he wrote the book The Prophet. And I sent her this letter. I shaved my head. I'm like, Mom, I love you. Now, my mother, you have to imagine, she's in St. Louis, Missouri. She's sitting on the corner of the couch, glass end table, nice Chinese lamp, remote control, Diet Coke, the Sunday magazine open. And she gets this letter that says, I am of you. You're like a living bow. And although you sent me out into the world, and although I am of yours, I'm not yours. And so the next time I get on the phone, it's like, come home, you have drugs. What's the matter with you? So I was on this journey to explore. And this journey took me around the globe. And ultimately, I made a friend named Harry Hümer from Austria. And we decided to begin traveling. And we traveled in the mountains. And we ended up living in caves together and practicing Tai Chi. And then we decided that we would stop speaking for 1 week. So we found a place up on top of a mountain by a waterfall, and we had 2 doors to the tent. He had his, and I had mine, and each day we would just sit and meditate. And so I was on a process to become omnipotent or something more than marketing and advertising. And this is what started to bring me towards the 3P. And then in the middle of our journey, I decided to live blindfolded and see what it was like to live blindfolded. Now, keep in mind that when we were doing this, I had long curly hair at the time, and we each had 2 sides of a river, and we weren't speaking, and we would both sit on the river. And at this point, this is in Spain, and pretty much all I was wearing was just mountain boots and my mountaineering sunglasses. That was about it. Just sitting and being. And so while I was sitting and being in my mountain boots, there's a Spanish goat herder. He's eating his bocadillo and drinking a beer out in the mountains. And I don't know how he got that far out there. And his goats came up and started nibbling at me, and I wasn't going to move. And so here's this naked man sitting in in the mountains. Goats surrounded him, and the guy's coming up, and he sees me. It's like, ah! And so that wasn't enough. So I decided that I wanted to stop eating for a week. So I stopped eating for 1 week. And this journey took me through a place of exploration. So I studied the three world major religions, and I tried many things to find out what matters most. And ultimately, I came to the three principles. Someone told me, I decided I was on my way to Israel, and Israel is the home of the three world's major religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And where the place I lived actually in Jerusalem, you would hear the church bells in the morning, and then you hear the Muslim call to prayer, then you would see the Jews at the Western Wall, and it's quite a cacophony. And so before I did this trip, someone told me about Jack Pransky and about the center, and that was up in Washington, in Laconia, Washington. And so I decided to go there, and I tried to negotiate with them. I was with Val de Monroe and also Keith Blevins, and Keith said you have to come for a week. I'm like, look, I'm happy to pay you the money. It was a lot of money, but I'm fast. You don't understand. I don't need a week. He's like, okay, so don't come. I'm like, wait. I'm happy to pay you the money, but I don't need that much time. And so so to make a long story short, we I said, fine, I'll come for the week. And sure enough, it was on the second or third day that the penny dropped. And it's like, there's something here, and it's different than everything else I'd heard. And so that's kind of what got me into thinking that, it's my thinking and not necessarily the content of my thought. And so that's what ultimately brought me to it, Lily.
Wow. Well, I never heard all of that story. And I mean, and part of me is when you were you in pursuit of something? Was it fun? If you don't mind, I know we have a lot of great stuff to get to, but to me, it's so interesting. And also, I guess it's something that I've been curious about, and my life never worked out that way, to be silent for a week and not eat for a week. Like, was it just out of like, I think when I was that young, it would have been more, I thought something was wrong with me and I was looking for something. But were you doing it just from a place of like curiosity? Like, was something driving you? Were you wanting an end goal, or was it, if you don't mind sharing a little bit more about
All right, so I'll be vulnerable. I'll be vulnerable with you. I was really arrogant, and I was a bit of a jerk, and I was looking for omnipotence. And I'd heard how people in India could levitate, and that their fingernails would grow long, and there was this thing called nirvana. It's like, wow, that sounds way better than being high, and that sounds like even better than money, and sounds like better than all the physical pleasures I've experienced. Because I was going through this kind of Siddhartha stage of experimenting and trying everything, trying wisdom, trying art, trying culture, trying music, trying money, trying power, trying influence. And so when I started to learn that there's something above and all beyond all that, and like you can become omnipotent through this, like, oh, so I'm really embarrassed to say that I was looking for the one question that's been guiding my life. And that one question is, what matters most?
Wow.
I just keep asking the question, what matters most?
What would
And
you say?
so,
Go on. Sorry.
yeah, so that's what drove me to it.
Wow. What's your answer to that question today? What matters most?
It's different all the time, and it depends on what's going on. So I don't know of one answer all the time, and certainly it's led me towards a path of spirituality. But what it has led me to is that what matters most in this moment and in this moment.
Yeah.
And so it's allowed me to be present.
Mm.
And what I prepared for you is this journey. If you'd like to see, I've got some amazing stories for you. And if I could share my screen,
Yes,
I want to
please.
share a little bit about what led me into this kind of a manifestation of three principles. Let me. Okay. You can see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so this book is called Wait. And I'm going to give an offer for people who want it for free, actually, at the end, how they can get a free copy of it. And WAIT stands for What Am I Thinking? Why Am I Talking? And it's one proven principle that improves your happiness and your success. And one of the versions, it's for business leaders. So a lot of what I do, I run a company called Turning Point, and we work with leaders and their leadership teams and also their families and their spouses. So we do both personal development and also organizational growth. And so one of these versions was written for companies, but it's for the average person as well. And so if you think about what am I thinking, if you go a little bit deeper, I'm going to give you the secret in the cover. And it doesn't really say, what am I thinking? But rather it says, what am I thinking?
Mm.
And so the first step is becoming aware that we are thinking, and not necessarily the content of our thought, but it's one of the three principles is thought and mind. And so the aspect that we're constantly thinking, creating our reality, and that reality that manifests through our speech. And so in the Wait book, it gives us strategies to be more successful and happy. And it starts off with catching your thinking. That many times we're so busy thinking that thoughts are coming and they're going, just like you're sitting at a you're sitting at an intersection and cars are coming and going. And if you catch a thought, you realize, oh, that's just a thought. I was getting nervous, and so I'm having a nervous thought. Oh, and now I'm conscientious. Oh, and now I'm sad. They're just thoughts. And the idea that by catching your thinking, you could reduce about 60% of your wasted energy and time and anxiety. And realize that your experience is coming from your thoughts, not your circumstances. No matter where you are, whether you're Viktor Frankl in a concentration camp, or if you're fighting a battle, or if you're with your wife or your husband, or you're working, it's our thinking that's producing our experience. And not just that, there's a negademic in the world. And my fervent belief, Lily, is that the main cause of our suffering is what we call SAT, stressful, anxious thinking. It's not the stress in our life. It's our stressful, anxious thinking. And so therefore I've taken upon us and our company and everything we're doing is to try to empower people to realize, become aware of it's my thoughts, and then what do we do with it?
Yeah.
What happens in our thoughts is that we begin overthinking and we indulge in them. And we think about a past experience, then what do I think about that? And how do I feel? And then I start projecting to the future. And this is what we call rumination. So I also happen to be a rabbi, and most people don't know that, but there's something called rumination. So when it comes to kosher animals, rumination means that they chew their cud and they swallow it and they regurgitate it and chew it again. And that's very good for kosher animals, but it's really bad for emotional well-being. And I told you that I was a Buddhist, I lived in a Buddhist monastery. And Buddhist monasteries and Jews have something in common, is they both don't touch women unless you're married. I make it a practice, actually, only my wife and my children. I don't touch women, but not all women know that. They might, so monks also will do that. And so monks made a vow not to touch women. So these two monks, they're walking down the road, and what happened was the road got wiped out because of, in English, in Hebrew, it's called shidafon. or it's a water slide, a water um, when water comes streaming down the mountains, it just washes everything out. And you don't know if you're at a lower location because, it happens in a higher elevation. So this happens to these two guys. They're walking, and one of them sees there's a woman who's trapped there. And so he picks her up, carries her across the river, puts her down. The others, he lifts up his cloaks and starts walking through. Great. So an hour later, this one says to the first, he says, I don't understand. We made a vow not to speak, not to touch women. And what does he say? I put her down an hour ago. You're still carrying her. So how often are we carrying our thoughts into this moment? And as long as we carry them into this moment, we're not actually in this moment. And I'm involved in something called the shift from PTSD to PTG. And there are a lot of people who are traumatized by war in Israel and around the world. And the three principles states that if you feed that, whatever you feed grows. And so shifting from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, to PTG, which is post-traumatic growth, that means that that's something that happened in the past and it's true. And it was an experience. And I don't need to necessarily carry it in this moment because whatever I feed is going to grow. But what happens is that we tend to gap spot. And I told you there's an epidemic in the world, and according to the National Science Foundation, maybe 90% of our thoughts are negative, which is crazy. And so we tend to gap spot. And there was a fellow by the name of Gary. They called him Gary the Gap Spotter. He got a internship by he got a scholarship by diving, platform diving. And his father was his coach, and his father was always saying, look, you have to tuck more, you have to point your toes more, you have to straighten out your body so you make less of a splash when you go in. And he was always finding the gaps. And then when he got in college, he had a different type of coach. He had a coach that said, visualize what you can be doing and be in the dive. And that made a big impact on his diving, but it was so deeply ingrained in him that he got a job out of college working for GSI, Gap Spotters International, a consulting company. And in that world, it's like problem, solution, problem, solution. So he became very successful at finding problems and solutions. And he started looking at the whole world like problems and solutions. And with his wife, they got married, had a nice house, nice car, and nice kids, until one day it wasn't so nice. And his wife says, you know what, this is not working. And he said, what's the problem? So she lists all the problems. He goes back to his office, creates a spreadsheet, comes back with a piece of paper and said, here's tab number 1 with all the problems, and here's tab number 2 with all the solutions. She's like, you can take your spreadsheet and shove it right where the sun doesn't shine. And so he realized that this is not working. And so he said, like, what's going on? And so they're still battling for a while, and it turns out that he starts not feeling well. He goes to the doctor, and the doctor says that you have cancer, and you got about 9 months left to live. And he's like, whoa, I really have to make some changes. So he goes home and he starts making some changes, and he realized the first thing he needs to stop doing is ruminating and gap spotting. And he wasn't even aware of his thinking. And so what he was doing was generating all sorts of problems. And he realized that he needed to start to become free in his business, and he needed to empower other people. And what matters most is my wife, is my children, is how I am in the world. And so he started living life very differently. And what happened was he actually started becoming more free, made more money, empowered people. He enrolled people because of his rapport was stronger. He started making life, living life on his own terms, and his relationship with his wife built, his children built. And then he went back to the doctor and he said, you're diagnosed with something called, well, it's called remission. I don't know if you know the word remission, but it means that you are no longer, you're free. And so now he had the best of both worlds, but he shifted from gap spotting. And instead of gap spotting, he moved from outside in to inside out. And so what happens is it's never our situation. It's always our thinking. And so if he was trained to think like, oh, I've got to be successful, and here's what success looks like. But that's all outside in. The three principles tells us that it's an inside out experience. Instead of using language like the problem is the deadline is next week, I'll never finish. Okay, I can reframe it and say the challenge is. I'll find a way. It's inside out. And so I experience it very different. It's never our situation. It's always our thinking. This is from the book. This is upgrade number 4. And here's what happens is this, the one idea, it's you're thinking about your circumstances, never your circumstances. So he's blaming his circumstances like, they didn't get my email and now I can't go to the conference. I'm so angry. Because he's connected with his external experience. But instead it's like, oh, I see that it's my thinking about my circumstances that's making me feel that way. Because we're always feeling our thinking, right? And now I can deeply accept my reality and trust my innate wisdom to know what to do. And now I can choose my next step. So this is a very deep principle that we aren't broken and that we have innate wisdom that can guide us what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so once we start realizing that I don't have to fix everything, that I'll have my own innate wisdom and well-being that can guide me in this moment and knowing what to do.
Yeah.
So then we let go of rumination and we can step into being present. And what happens when we ruminate is like, my wife should know I'm coming home and I'm ready for dinner. And you should know better. And I should have known how to fix this. And I should have been more prepared. So here we call it shoulding. This is the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not should on thyself or others. So you should be making more sales calls. So as soon as we shift out of this moment and I'm changing you, I break all the rapport. And so I stop shooting on myself or shooting on you. Instead, the truth is you need to make more sales calls. But what's your thinking about making the sales calls? What support you need? Now we get authentic and connected, right? Because there's the reason why, as long as I'm telling, I'm never going to be able to really empower you. Because instead of shooting, it's like, hey, what's your thinking behind it? So clearly there's some sort of thinking. By giving someone an opening to the thinking, I'm building rapport, and now I'm going way beyond a necktie separates your heart from your head. And all the stuff up in the head, it's like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. But when you can go a little bit deeper, so you start realizing I've got some thinking that's going on behind it. That's what creates the rapport and the connection. And then you could shift to what we call upgrade number 2, which is there's a terrible, terrible word that most people use. It's a word that enslaves us. And the word is I have to. I have to. You ever hear yourself literally saying, I have to? I got to get an email done. I got to get this before I get going with the day. I've got to return someone's call. I've got to pick up. I got to go make dinner. I've got a meeting I have to get ready for. I have to lose weight. I've got to make my mortgage payment. As long as you live, I have to, you're like a slave. So this thrive thinking says no. Here's the old way is I have to go to the conference again. A new way is like, oh, I'm choosing to. And when you're in the moment and you become aware of your choices, then I can be free. I'm free in this moment to choose. Because ultimately, life is about choosing. And it's about what I choose becomes my destiny and who I am. And so when we can be free to choose, then we're no longer slaved. But what prevents us from doing that is blaming others. Today I was blaming others, to be honest with you. We're working on I have a strategic initiative, and I realized I'm waiting for people to tell me what to do. And so I'm blaming that they're not telling me the right thing. So what people tend to do is they blame others for making me feel this way. I'm blaming the Democrats. I'm blaming the Republicans. It's Donald Trump's fault. It's Kamala Harris's fault. It's always someone else or something else. So you make me feel so angry. No, wait a minute. nobody can make you feel anything. It's not possible. I feel angry when I think about being criticized. It's always my thinking. It's my own thoughts and my emotions that create my reality. This is the essence of three principles that says you can't make me that. I can feel that way. And what happens what's causing me to do that? I'm feeling my thinking. I'm thinking when I think about being criticized, then I feel angry. And so the whole goal here is just upgrading our awareness. And then we get more free. We have something called the A word. The A word is being annoyed, right? So instead of this is so annoying, I can't stand it. When I went on a trip with some of my kids, we said anyone that uses the A word, you have to pay $1. And so we collected dollars. And because annoyed, it's all ego. Like, oh, great me, I'm annoyed. You didn't show up on time. You should have known better. So this is so annoying, I can't stand it. Instead, we accept and choose. Accepting allows us to be in that Buddhist place when there's a boat coming at you. The Western mentality is like, hey, look out, hey, you idiot, look out, hey, I'm telling you, oh man, I told you, oh, gosh, right? So another way of doing that is look out, oh, here comes the boat, oh, it's not, whoa, I get back in, and I'm back again. So we take a breath, and I'm not annoyed because nobody can make me feel anything. And that's an outside-in experience. Instead, we're looking for inside out. To wait, what am I thinking? Why am I speaking? And so instead of being annoyed, coming from a place of ego, the great me, take 2 breaths. The breath in most languages is connected to soul. In Hebrew, it's ruach, nefesh, neshama. In Spanish, it's espirito. In French, it's esprit. In English, it's spirit. Ruch. In so many in so many languages, connected breath. So when we breathe twice, we reconnect to who we are. Oh, it's just my ego. It's my angry thinking that I'm feeling. Now what? So we're always feeling our thinking. And so therefore, once we do that, now we can build rapport again and be more successful as we enroll other people. That's the end of it. So I want to move into a new section called victims. And in my experience, what happens is we act as victims in this world. And in doing that, I want to share with you a story about Dr. Rachmi Melamed Cohen. So he was my mentor, and he was in his 24th year of Lou Gehrig's disease, and all he could do was blink his eyes. And he was amazing. He wrote over 20 books, and several of them he did just by blinking his eyes. He had Lou Gehrig's disease, and he realized he needed to stay one step ahead of the disease. And so he got a wheelchair. And then he had to get an electric wheelchair. And then he had to get a voice box. And then he lost his ability to move his hands, and he became a quadriplegic. And then he lost his ability to swallow, and so he got on a feeding tube. And all he had was his ability to blink his eyes. And so when I met him, I was so inspired that he created this incredible artwork. And he learned how to do art with Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator with his eyes, start writing books. And so we would communicate via email. And he said, John, these are the best years of my life. He can't eat, he can't talk, he can't move, he can't do anything, he can't make love, but these are the best years of his life. And so how does he do that? He said that crisis and stress in Chinese is the same language of danger and opportunity. And so we started something that he did this incredible art, and he did this with his eyes. And so this is called, he did this colors in the Bible. and this is called rock, which is gold. And so we started out by creating something called how to bounce. And so we created this thing called the coin of happiness. On one side to deeply accept, and the other side to choose, and to strive and to accept. And we gave out thousands and thousands of them. And then we created something called the bounce card with his art. And the whole idea is to simply realize that everything that happens in life is you're going to have setbacks. It's not going to be a question about whether you're going to have a setback. The only question is how you're going to respond. And so therefore, it's very simple. There's 3 steps: to accept, bounce, and choose. To deeply accept and acknowledge what is. So he accepted his disease and he acknowledged it. And he realized that it's a feature, it's not a flaw. And then he said, okay, how is this an opportunity to bounce? When you're on a diving board, a small setback, a small bounce, a big setback, a big bounce. Yeah. And always realize that the now is the how in this moment, because we can use this to bounce at any moment. And then to choose, and ultimately it's all about choosing. And so asking the question of, how might this be for the good? And what is my choice in this moment? So what he did was, he was always alive. And his grandchildren, he would take them wherever they were. And so he got this eye tracking software. And as he learned how to use his eyes, he started creating images with his eyes. And then I took my children to meet with him. And as I took my children to meet with him, he asked them a couple of questions. He said, he would type in, it would be very laborious for him, Lily. And he would say, Yaladim, children, Malamadatempo, what did you learn here today? And my kids were kind of intimidated by the whole thing. Here's a guy just lying there, right, blinking his eyes, and he was always making mistakes, and it was difficult to type. And he'd say, Lirot chayim ba'or yafeh, see light in goodness, in beauty. This is your choice. You can do that because we have innate well-being. And he said, Tamid lismochem. He says, always be happy. Why? Yesh sarot. There's always going to be suffering. But never, ever give up. Lo yityaesh. As Christ is the beginning of new life. So that means no matter where we are in our life, there's no such thing as being stuck. And so he did this early in his life, was that he had these boys that were in 6th grade, the worst kids of all. And he loved them and he connected with them. And so they're like, take them again in 7th grade. And so he did, take them again in 8th grade. He invested in them. He saw the good, he saw what's called a nekudatova, a good point in them. And he invested in the relationships, and 40 years later, when he's a quadriplegic, they come and they help him. And I was there one day when they come, and he has an eye to be able to see this with his eyes, to be able to see the good in others. And so when you do, you build rapport. This was his wife that came when one of my daughters got married. That day, unfortunately, he was set to come in a van, but couldn't come. And he wrote all these books, and these he did all with his eyes.
Wow. And
he had art exhibits. And he overcame, instead of a pandemic, the negademic. So I thought that you'd find him inspiring.
So inspiring. Wow.
And so instead of being a victim, you become a chooser. Instead of saying, why did this happen to me? We say, what is happening asking of me? That's empowering. Yeah. And you don't always know, but you're no longer a victim. This is number 6. And what happens is we're like, this is not fair. Why? Because we have expectations. We have expectations of how it should be. He had expectations that he shouldn't have Lou Gehrig's disease. Honestly, I have expectations that life shouldn't be hard and there shouldn't be terrorists in the world. And we lost somebody to terrorists. And I have expectations that everything should be fair. But expectations are the kiss of death. So when we can let go of expectations, we change our reality. So this is drawn by a dear friend of mine called C.O.A.L, who wrote an amazing book called The Well of Being. And what happens is we have expectations that we write and we write. Do you know what this is? It's a narrative. He wrote himself into a corner. So when we have this negative thinking or this negative mindset, we actually create a story and a narrative, and we get stuck by our own narrative. I meet people all the time that they get stuck in their narrative. They're stuck in a marriage. He doesn't understand me. Or they're stuck with someone who's abrasive in their company or their relationship. And I'm stuck, I can't do anything, but we never, ever, ever stuck. And what happens is as we move to raising our awareness, instead of being stuck in a narrative, we move to being a fly on the wall. So instead of being enrolled in that story, that dark negative story, whatever it is, like what's your story? Where do you get stuck? And you'd share with me before, Lily, that you got stuck earlier in your life, right? What was your story? What was your narrative?
That I was an anxious person, that I was different and pretty broken, you know, a life of ease and kind of. And another story was that somebody needed to worry to keep everybody safe. And I guess that was me. You know, other people got to be more carefree, but that somebody needed to worry, and that was going to be me.
Right. So we all have a story. I had a narrative. When I was in college, I was a total jerk. Although I was in Business Week and I created this world's largest student-run advertising PR agency, and what I wasn't aware of was how I was showing up in the world. And I was trying to build my portfolio, and I was trying to look good, and it was about me. And I feel really ashamed of it. And so I was actually enrolled in a story that this is about me building my portfolio, getting a good job, looking really good. At the time I was interested in looking good to women. I was trying to prove myself to my dad, who had a big company, and I wanted to get hired. And so I wasn't even aware of what was going on. So in this case, we're like, he's so wrong. I'm going to tell him why I'm right and what to do. And so what happens when we can shift positions and we take a couple steps and we say, whoa, what am I thinking? Why am I speaking? And what's the story I have going on? And then now we can shift from first person, at least to become aware, to second person. Hey, what's it like for them? Here, I was not aware of what it was like for the other people. And they kind of started one last me to get out of the way, like get out. I don't, this is about you. It's not. And I was really ashamed. And so I can shift from first person to second person. And then the third person is I can go up to be a fly on the wall. And now I can go even higher and I can see, oh, here's a man and here's a woman. And the woman's feeling rejected and she's feeling judged and she's feeling used. And here's a man who's trying to make something happen. And now I can go even more aware and realize what's driving all this is their thought. And so as I move to that, it all melts away. It all melts away. The rapport can rebuild because I can see myself from first person. I can see the other person from second person, and I can move the fly on the wall, and I can shift positions, and I can see there's a lot of thinking going on here. 2 deep breaths. And that's what allows me to not be so enrolled in the story. Make sense?
Yes.
You know, there's 2 wolves, and there's a story. I know you like story. And there was a grandfather and a grandson, and they were up on the ridge, and they saw 2 wolves were fighting. And it was an evil wolf and a kind wolf. And one wolf was known, like there's the alpha wolf, if you will. And the alpha wolf can be mean and dominating and can torture and not be fair. And so they saw him fighting, and the little boy says to his grandfather, "Grandpa, which one's going to win?" And because they'd broken away from their pack and now they were alone looking for something. And he answers, "Whatever you feed grows." Whichever one you feed That's going to grow because inside of us, my dear grandson, we have a wolf as well. We have a good wolf and a bad wolf. We have a wolf that gets caught up in our own ego and our own thinking and our negativity. And if you feed that like a weed, that will grow. But when you come into this moment, when you're no longer ruminating, what you feed grows. And in this moment, my own innate well-being and wisdom can guide me and feed this moment because we have a gift. And the gift is that you can never think two thoughts at a time. Just like multitasking. There's no such thing as multitasking. It's a lie. But what you can do is you can switch tasks quickly. Like you can send an email and talk and send an email and talk. But since we can only think one thought at a time, that means if I'm present in this moment, I can actually redirect what I'm thinking. And I can be aware, oh, I was running away. Let me come back into the thought. So my thoughts and my experiences, I'm generating from the inside. And I can have a life filled with whatever you choose, even though it can be painful and difficult. And even if you're a quadriplegic, you can have the best years of your life. I don't know if you ever experienced this. A couple of weeks ago, I was driving somewhere, made an appointment, and I got caught in traffic. And I was really frustrated because I was late and it was going to be so much later. And sometimes when you caught in traffic, you're like, you think that's bad? Oh my gosh, it took you 10 minutes. I got stuck there for a half hour. And then the president was coming and oh my gosh, the whole road got stuck down. So it's called one-upping. If you think that's bad, you should hear how bad it was for me. We were in 3 accidents. Instead of one-upping, we can get into deep listening. And so in 3 principles, my dad told me, John, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Shut up. Use it appropriately. Like, what am I thinking? Why am I talking? I don't need to inject my own story and show that mine is even worse. That's just that little voice saying mine's worse. So when we're in a low state, it makes sense. And when we're in this stressful, anxious thinking, it makes sense that we are going to view the world in a negative space. But as we just become aware of our thoughts, we're no longer so stuck by that. And so this is the bounce card as we spoke about. And it's as simple as 3 steps, which is accept, bounce, and choose. And that makes you free. And I'm happy to give a copy of this to anyone anyone afterwards that logs in. And I want to let you know that there's an assessment. We call this Happy, Healthy, and Wealthy. And there's an assessment that's an illustrated assessment. It's very fun to take. And it's an assessment that we've been mentoring leaders and families for over 20 years. And if you want to be happy and healthy and wealthy is a different definition of what most people think is wealth. There's financial wealth, but someone who is wealthy, you have to have a definition of richness that works, whether you're quadriplegic, whether you're fat, whether you're skinny, whether you have money, don't have money, whether you're in a good marriage, not in a good marriage. So wealth means being happy with my portion. A different definition of wealth. So happy, healthy, and wealthy. So we have this assessment. It's at myturningpoint.com/quiz. And it's really fun. Each link gives you a question and it has different illustrations on it. And it will show you what you need to do and how to be happier and healthier and wealthier, if you will. So I've got a couple more I wanted to share. Any questions, comments that you had on this?
No, I love it. I wrote it down because I want to take it. I'm loving everything. I'm having so many insights myself, but I don't want to. I could share it after, but I want to take that quiz. I'm really excited.
Okay, so if we're looking for using these ideas powerfully, so you can produce better results. A lot of people are thinking that, oh, okay, so I have my inner game and my outer game. Oh, great, I've got an inner game, but you know what? I still want to be more successful in my job. I still want to be more successful with my relationships. I want to be more successful with my family. I do want to be healthier physically. So how do we do that? It's through C.O.A.L. C.O.A.L instead of being in a judging place, because when we're ruminating, when we are not aware of our thoughts, when we're stuck in the negademic, then what happens is we start judging. And when we're judging, we think a judging thought. And so therefore, we're going to see another person in a negative way. We're like, you're such a jerk. You're always late. Wait. It's not necessarily true. It's my thinking. And instead, we want to move into C.O.A.L, curious, open, accepting, and loving. And we change the language. Instead, I noticed you were late. What's up? And when you're a coach instead of a cop, especially in business or working with anyone, a cop finds what's wrong and they're judging. And it's always coming from a place of, I know better and I'm going to tell you how to fix it. So instead, being curious is like, oh, I wonder what's up. And that simple question, you shift from being a cop to a coach. Oh, I noticed you were late. What's up? Instead of blaming, instead of judging, it's in a really simple way. Like, I noticed, what's up? Such a question goes beyond the tie and gets us out of our head and more into a deeper level of connection. And we move from PTSD to PTG, so to speak. And instead of labeling that person such a jerk, because what happens is there's so many tactics about reading people, but the three principles takes us upstream. And it's realizing that, oh, one of the things that we're doing is we're labeling because I'm thinking and thinking, but it's not needing a technique. And instead of labeling a person and putting them in a box, if you will, diagnosing a problem, but when we're present in our thinking and aware, we're like, oh, here's what we normally do. It's because I'm so busy talking. W-A-T, what am I thinking? Why am I talking? Oh, you're reacting this way because you're suffering PTSD. You need medication. We're always diagnosing, but instead, questions are the answers. Explore and ask, hey, what's really going on for you? That takes us something much deeper. And that's coming from being aware of our thinking and knowing that we have mind and consciousness. And by that's going upstream. And that puts us more present in the moment. And the person is no longer boxed into anything. What we do is we project. You know, a deep concept in the three principles is we have separate realities. I have an expectation you should think about the world just like I do. And so therefore we start projecting, right? Oh, you're grumpy because you have to deal with accounting all the time. Whoa, what's happening here? So I'm seeing you as grumpy. My thinking is that you're grumpy. I'm projecting my own stuff on you. And when I become aware, it's like, wait, what am I thinking? Oh, just because I hate accounting doesn't mean he has the same reality as me. Same thing whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican. What we need is bridges. And the goal isn't necessarily to solve the problem, but to build bridges and rapport. And if you're a Democrat, what I want to know if I'm a Republican is what's my projecting on you? And when we start building that dialogue, and I realize, oh, we have separate realities. Oh, you want to feel safe. That's why you believe in gun control. Oh, you've had a parent that was unfairly treated, and so you believe in unions. Oh, so just because I hate accounting doesn't mean he has the same reality. So we can start to accepting and acknowledge we have separate realities, and we're not going to have the same realities. And I need to let go of you expecting that you're going to think just like me. So what do we do instead? Number 14 is we validate. Instead of negating, which we're seeing it all the time right now with all the fighting, you're making a big deal about nothing. Just get over it. And there's truth in that. But first, validate. We all want to be validated, right? We want so desperately to be validated. And if you can first slow it down, take 2 deep breaths in realizing that I'm enrolled in my own story. And instead of negating what you're doing and trying to fix it, let me validate you. Oh, it makes sense that you're feeling frustrated. With my wife, I've learned really deeply, like, oh, let me not fix this. It makes sense you're feeling frustrated. And I want to fix it so badly because I know how to fix it. But my wife encourages me not to fix it. So it makes sense you feel frustrated. This must be difficult, even though I might not thinking it's so difficult, but I'm stepping into another person's moccasins. It must be difficult. What do you need to move forward? How can I empower you? So by validating and taking a little bit of time, it changes everything. And I'll only know if I'm in this moment. If I'm curious, open, accepting, and loving, if I'm cold. And then I can validate you. That means I get off of my position and into your position. And guess what? You'll get what you want. The more that you help other people get what they want, the more you get what you want. Yeah, but there's this disempowering word called yeah, but. Yeah, thanks for getting our taxes done, but it was a day later than I expected. So often when people are in a conversation, they're negating. It's like, yeah, but, yeah, but. As soon as you hear someone say, yeah, but, what's going on? Is there's another conversation really going on. So we want to be validated. And that means I've moved out of being in rapport with you and I'm no longer conscious of my thinking and I'm projecting and yeah, but I'm so deeply enrolled in my story. Yeah, we're not going to solve this because Democrats and Republicans, they're split. Or we're never going to resolve this because I like ice cream and you like, I want to go out for ice cream and you don't want to gain weight. And so we're never going to resolve this. Yeah, but yeah, thanks for getting our taxes done. But it was later than I expected. Oh, yeah, thanks for getting our taxes done. And I'm wondering how we can get it earlier next time. So you can not have to give up your ability to choose, but by being curious, open, accepting, and loving, you can still do it. Just get rid of that yeah, buts, because as soon as you say a yeah, but, that kills the flow. So here's what people are saying about our book is that, wow, I read it and I read the book all the way through and I couldn't put it down. So we're getting really nice reviews on it. And I want to remind you that you can take the assessment at myturningpoint.com. That's my company, our Turning Point. And we work with people to take them from where they are to where we want to go. And we take them from 3 ways of being, our way of thinking, to way of being, to way of doing. And we have a whole journey how we take them through that. And this is one thing you can do. And also, I told you I wanted to give an opportunity here. Oops. I wanted to give an opportunity to get a free copy of our book. You can simply go to book.myturningpoint.com, which is http:/book, whatever it is. It's book.myturningpoint.com. And that will give you a free copy of the book, plus tons of other resources, many resources we spoke about there. And also, you can catch us on the podcast, our podcast that we did together. You can see it. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, and just look for Turning Point with Jon Goldman. And with that, I want to ask you, how do we wrap this up? What's a next step, and what questions do you have for me?
I'm just so appreciative of that. I know I want to watch it again because there were things that I wanted to almost pause and think about. I was having my own insights in terms of just my business and my relationships. And also, I feel like it answered a question that I had from somebody in my community who she's seen. So I work with a lot of people who would like to experience less anxiety, and so she had asked, okay, I'm seeing all the benefits of like letting go of some kind of anxious thinking. But her question was, but I still really want to be successful in my life. And kind of like, am I going to be, can I still be successful? And it was, I'm kind of butchering it, but I said, yes, you'll actually even be more successful having this understanding really. And so this was, and somebody else said, oh, will you do a video on this? And then a lot of people were chiming in. Wondering with this understanding, is there any chance it would like impact you? You would be like a little bit lazy and blah, whatever. And it was the opposite. And so this is I'm really excited to share this with my community and also just the community at large for people to see how the kind of simple truths and the understanding, one, can not only help you not live in an anxious state, not be worried or stressed, the SAT, but also thrive and be successful in your relationships and in your business. That, to me, it's the key. Like, I've seen me and my business be incredibly successful. And it doesn't mean that now I just let all my thinking go and don't do anything. That this is a
Right.
really big key for success. And also, I'm really excited for that quiz and the book. I'm so excited to share it with everybody. So
The formula, instead of SAT, it's simple as ABC. If this formula is so incredibly empowering, accept. How can I accept myself, you, the situation? And that's, look, there's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Uh, um, there's Isaac, biblically, he let himself be bound to an altar, right? The Eastern world is just accepting what is. And then you have Abraham, which is kind of the Western world, which is making it happen. You have a tent with 4 doors on it, and let it be, let it be. But on the other hand, America is, and the Western world is very much about making things happen. But then there's a balance, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which is making it happen, letting it happen. And so if we just simply let everything, if we just simply accept, you're not going to live the life you would need to live. And if you just simply choose, but you don't ever accept, you're not going to be happy. So to accept, bounce, and then choose, and realize that this is a setback, which is a setup for a comeback and a bounce back. And now we're always going through a process of accepting what is and then choosing. And to trust my own innate wisdom, knowing I'll know what to do in this moment.
mm,
I
yeah,
can know what to do in this moment. And that way I can choose, because life is ultimately about choices.
yeah, yeah. I love that. I know that I can just think of like infinite touch points that I'm imagining people that I know listening and having insights and click points. A lot of people that I work with don't want to have a setback. It's like, oh, wait, I'm feeling so good. I never want to experience anxiety. The concept of bounce never occurred to me until you said that, and I love the simplicity and that the story, and like, I'm just blown away because I'm living the best years of my life. So there's but the bounce with a setback, I think so many people that I'm thinking of, it's like when you feel good, it's like, okay, so I've got to just know the principles. I never want to fall down into worry or anxiety. And it's like a setback. It's whether we're talking about business or relationship or an experience of anxiety. I love that. Accept, bounce, choose.
That's right.
And so they
You
could
can
get the
always use
bounce card. That's if they go to the book resource. That's something that would be
If not, we'll make it available for
okay.
all your watchers.
Okay. Well, Jon, I can't thank you enough. This was incredible. I know this is something that I'm going to rewatch, and I'm going to go and take
Great.
that quiz, and I'm going to get the free
Mhm.
book. I'm going to put all of the links, right? So when people are watching this, you'll see the links below for your website, and you work with people all over the world.
All over the world. That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
individuals and businesses.
My team is international. I'm on the speaking circuit. I have a team of psychologists, coaches, and consultants, and and we work with all kinds of different people. Our specialty is leaders, and we do a lot of family businesses. I love family businesses, but we work on the personal growth and business growth and being productive and happy. So that's our zone, being productive and happy.
Well, that's so wonderful. I mean, I think it's really beautiful because sometimes you think, well, if I have a successful business, is it gonna, how can you can't choose. It's either, well, I'm gonna miss out on family life, successful and happy. And so I love, I just love that you can see that, and that you're helping people see that you can be successful and I can imagine the stories and the thoughts that would go into having a family business. So I'm sure all the family businesses are so happy to have you.
This is my one-page life plan. Everyone that goes through our program creates a one-page life plan. And so my purpose is to empower leaders and their circles to actualize their greatest potential through what I call simplify, codify, and multiply as a holy mensch, with love and joy. So doing this podcast is doing exactly what I want to do. And with your with your audience and your listeners and the people that you're interacting with, if I can empower them to actualize their greatest potential, I'm doing exactly what I'm meant to be doing on this planet.
Oh my gosh. And that kind of brings us full circle. That's, I just love that so much. And that's, I don't know what my life purpose would be, but I think when I think of it, whatever I've been doing is having conversations and helping people be in a good feeling and realize that they're not alone in this, just to be being in this moment. So I'm just so grateful that we've connected, that you've shared so many wonderful resources. And so I'm really excited for everybody to listen to this and to check out everything that you have to offer.
Thank you, Lily. Really appreciate the opportunity. And as I close off, I would say, when it comes to this work, ready, fire, aim. Most people are like aim, 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 and by the time they're ready to fire, the target's moved. So you already can trust that you have your own innate well-being and wisdom. You can trust it, and so come into this moment, and you'll know exactly what to do.
Oh, I love that. I think it was George Pransky who said, shoot the arrow and wherever it lands, call that the target, which I know might be a little bit different, but it's kind of made me think of that as well.
Yeah. Okay,
Well,
talk to you soon.
thank you,
Thanks so much.
Jon. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Okay.
Okay.